Hello everybody and welcome back to A Slice, A Spice, and A Dice movie reviews. I hope everybody's been doing well. Now, as you might have guessed, I have been back on a horror movie binge streak, and so I figured let's dust off the old camera. Let's head on back over to this channel over here. If you're not familiar with my other channel, I'll put it up here. It's my true crime channel where I do commentary, recaps, story times, that kind of stuff on true crime. One movie that I watched recently that I desperately want to come here and talk to y'all about, and that is Candyman, the 2021 version, came out this year. And I just watched it recently and I've got some things to say. Now, this is how I typically do the reviews over here on this channel. So I'm going to kind of give a very quick, synopsis of the film, and I'm going to talk about relatively spoiler-free type of review type thing. You can pretty much be rest assured if you've watched the trailer and read the the little synopsis or whatever that the movie says, then it's not going to tell you anything different than that. After that, I will always make an announcement and I'll tell you we're going into Spoiler Alert Nation, and then that's where I talk a little bit more freely about the movie, give some of my opinions on it. Even then, I typically don't give away all the big plot twists and all that kind of stuff, especially for this film, because they definitely have this in there. So there's that. As always, if you want to go into this and no clue what it's about, be totally surprised, then turn this off right now and come back and dish with me after you watch it. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in. In present day, many years after the last of the Cabrini towers were torn down, Anthony and his partner move into a loft in the now gentrified Cabrini. A chance encounter with an old-timer exposes Anthony to the true story behind Candyman. Anxious to use these macabre details in his studio as fresh grist for paintings, he unknowingly opens a door to a complex past that unravels his own sanity and unleashes a terrifying wave of violence. Nia DaCosta is the director of this. She is also known for Little Woods and another film called Ghost Tape. Okay, so just like that says, this takes place years after the original allegedly did, and it heavily relies on the original one. Now, before we get into any of that kind of stuff, I will say this. I absolutely love this film, right? I grew up with the first one in that time zone or whatever, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a second too. But as far as Nia goes, this is one of those films that when you watch it, you're like, I want to see more from this director. I really like this person's vision. I like their execution of the project. I like what they were doing here. So she's somebody that, to me, brought something exciting to the camera, to the script, and to the storyline. Now, also, the cinematography, the performance from the actors, all that was on point. I felt like, especially the cinematography and the shots and just everything about it was, I would say, above average for a horror film. The performances from the actors, I felt it was good. I didn't feel they were cheesy performances. Definitely some noteworthy performances in there. So I was very happy with that as well. Now, according to IMDb, they actually did film where Cabrini was. Now, the high-rises are gone, but the buildings that we see here in the movie, they're still there. So I thought that was really cool. Now, side note, it does sound like they are mowing the grass outside, so bear with me if that noise is kicking in. I don't know if y'all will be able to hear that or not, but hopefully not. Now, also, if you're like me, okay, so like I said, I grew up with this original one, so this movie was like the real-life Bloody Mary, okay, when it first came out. The whole go in the bathroom, say his name 5 times, or not the bathroom, but just the mirror in general, but we would do it in the bathroom or whatever. So this film had a lot of nostalgia for me. You'll see a lot of the things I review end up being that, like remakes or direct sequels to films like when I was younger or whatever. And so I really like this about that. Now, another thing that was really amazing about this film is that they brought Tony Todd back. To me, that was going to be pretty much a deal breaker if he wasn't going to be in it, because it's just, he is Candyman, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, I can't wrap my mind around him not being Candyman. He does such an amazing performance, his whole aura, his vibe, everything. Now, another thing that I read according to IMDb is that they had to de-age him, obviously afterwards, whatever, with makeup and stuff to pull the role off. I thought that was interesting. But, he comes to this film and he brings that whole vibe of Candyman is at present again. So if you were a fan of the first one, it's on point. Okay, so let's answer a couple of questions that we always try and answer with each film over here. Okay. First of all, did it make me put my phone down? Yes, absolutely. Now, here's the thing. I did not go to the theater to see this. I rented it, like, literally just the other night. And I was like, oh my God, it's not $20 or whatever anymore to rent it at home. And so I rented it. I think it was like $5.99. It was completely worth it. I did not want to go to my phone. I was into the film, right? So I was like, okay, there's that. I did pick the phone up afterwards and start Googling about it. That's a huge thing for me. If I'm interested enough in a film to be like, what's up, then that's good. Does it get a slice of spice or dice? It gets all three. Because just like I told you, I wanted to Google about it. I wanted to talk to y'all about it. And I was definitely like, this was, it was fresh. It was exciting. It kept me entertained. Okay, so now is the time we're going to be going a little bit deeper, a little bit more into what we might call Spoiler Alert Nation. Okay, so like the little movie synopsis said, Anthony and his partner, they're living in like this kind of fancy life, There's definitely this vibe of like, we're teaching, not like we're trying to teach people a lesson here, but there are undertones to this film that you will pick up on in this. First of all, the gentrification of the place and that whole thing, and also that level of like, people not realizing they're part of that, if that makes sense, and they kind of call that out in this film. So there's undertones like that going throughout this. So, there's that. That is what sparks Anthony's interest when he hears from his partner, his fiance, whatever she is in the film, brother, about this, like, the Candyman tale. He's like, what is this? I want to check it out. So he goes there and he stumbles upon this dude who's like an old timer. He remembers, Candyman. And this is what leads to him igniting this whole past. And what he's doing is he's using this as inspiration for like his artwork, right? And so he's making this kind of like out there artwork that would give it to me. It was cool, but it would also give alarm to somebody if your partner all of a sudden started doing this, and then all the weird stuff started happening that happens to him. You'll be like, what? Okay, so there's that. So remember how I said that it relies a lot on like the original? So here's one thing that this film is doing. It has to rely on the original to a good degree, right? Because it's like a kind of sequel, a little bit of a direct sequel, if you will. Not direct, but I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. It's a sequel, pretend the other ones don't exist, that whole vibe. That's how I went into it, at least. And so it's relying on this original storyline that we remember, and you're going along with that. Now, I'm not going to tell you the twists and turns that come from that, because there's definite like ones in it that you're like, what? And it makes the film, so I'm not going to say those here. But just know, in my opinion, you would need to truly appreciate this film. You would have needed to have seen the original, right? So if you're looking at this as a standalone film, it can hold its own water, right? But it has a totally different impact if you already know and have seen the before film. So if you have not seen this and you want the full impact, you need to go watch the original one and then come watch this one, because it will hit totally different, right? So there's that dynamic. Now here's one of my critiques about it. So this movie is going along, it's regurgitating this original storyline, and you're kind of getting this bits and pieces of like, here's the history of Candyman, the different versions of Candyman, of who Candyman really was, this enigma of him and a real life persona or whatever. Okay, so you're going along. Then all of a sudden, you're just like, oh, hold on, we're here. And I don't even know a way to describe it without doing a spoiler alert, but it's just, you all of a sudden arrive at this place in the movie where you're like, okay, whoa, I feel like we did a major jump. And then this realization takes place where it's like, okay, they've really been trying hard to tell this original story throughout the whole thing, but now we have to tidy up the loose ends of the current situation. So that's the best way to say it. So it's like all of a sudden you're just there and you feel like, whoa, this is a major jump. I can see where they were going with it and the issue they ran into it with, but it's almost like they could have not relied on the original as much, or almost broken this into two different films in a way. I don't know. I'm not sure where the breakdown was with it, but it definitely kind of pulled me out of it a little bit, where I was like, huh. Now again, you already heard what I said. It's not to the degree that I'm like, oh no, this is bad, or da-da. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, this could have been smoothed out a little bit more. Now, as far as like gore and scare and jumps and stuff like that, yeah, there's some bloody scenes and whatnot like that. It depends on what your version of gore is. Okay, so if we're gonna rate it on this system right here. We're going to pick two pretty hardcore things. We're going to give Texas Chainsaw Massacre as like a number 1, right? And we're going to do the centipede, the human centipede, as number 10, as being like, oh my god, that's disgusting. This is like a 4, okay? Keep in mind, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you really didn't see a whole bunch of gore. You know what I mean? The idea was there. This, you do see that. So, there's that. For me, who's kind of seen it all, this didn't even register on that. Jump scares, not too many of those, like a couple of things. There were some definite creep out moments though, and definite like kind of anxiety ridden. But one thing I appreciated about this is there was almost this more of like a psychological horror aspect to it. Mixed in with that obvious horror, which I just really appreciated that. Again, that was the fresh take on this story. Again, I will say I love the director's vision with this. It was such a unique way of expressing the story, and I mean, I really just give her 2 thumbs up on that. I will finish this off by saying the twists and turns are amazing. Piecing it together and knowing the original story and then seeing this, I was like, oh, whoa. So for someone who's been a fan of this, a fan of Tony Todd, a fan of the storyline, has said Candyman in the damn mirror, you know, as a kid, and played that whole Bloody Mary thing and all that, you know, absolutely wonderful. Definitely watch this film. It is a good one. You will enjoy it. It is definitely good. I mean, I'll say this. Am I glad that I saw it at home? Yeah. I would have felt like if I had gone to the theater and paid like $20 for tickets and food and all that, I would have been kind of like, you know, but I'm just kind of different at this point with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, times have a little bit changed. There's some films that I'm more inclined now to be like, I'm just rather watch it at home on my sofa under a blanket. So that was my 2 cents on it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you saw it, let me know what you think. If you have other movie suggestions, let me know down in the comment sections. And the next time I go on a little binge, we'll be joining right here in front of all these little things right here to talk about it. I'll see you then.